On that Christmas day in 1781, when snow kept falling from a grey sky and people all over the city were sitting warm in front of a fire or working outside to keep streets and paths free of snow, or just drinking a glass of wine in the tavern, Mozart received a request from the emperor to perform that evening for his guests, amongst which the Grand Duke of Russia. Of course he accepted, and after darkness had fallen, a coach paddled through the snow to bring the young genius of 25, splendidly dressed as always, with sword, to the palace of Joseph II. What Wolfgang did not know, apparently, is the fact that Joseph had also asked the by then world-famous Muzio Clementi, only 4 years older than he and touring since 1780 throughout Europe. They both played at their best, and at the end, the emperor called the competition a tie. Clementi would keep his whole third alive. He would only die in 1832. Very good memories to this moment, describing Mozart playing the keyboard in a way he never heard before. Mozart, on the other hand, never would have one good word for his colleague, saying that Clementi was only good in playing thirds and octaves, but had not one bit of musicality in his blood. Well, was that really what he thought? Reading several sources, Clementi would have played his Sonata Opus 24, number 2 in B-flat major, of which Mozart 10 years later would take the opening for his opera Die Zauberflöte. I didn't find the records yet on which the fact is based that Clementi would have played that sonata that particular evening. It might be so, but fact is that in this sonata there is no sign of thirds, neither octaves playing. And of course Clementi improvised a great deal, and you know what I think? I think that Mozart was transfixed by what he saw. I mean, by that time his variations on A vous dirai-je were his latest, maybe not its most difficult variations, but technically representative of his style. Or his latest grand sonata, written probably in Paris in 1778 or a bit later. But what if Clementi had played that evening some pieces like this? Or difficulties like this. Or this. I imagine Mozart being a young guy, very aware of his superiority on all musical fields. He must have been very relaxed when he was introduced to Clementi that evening, but his technique at that moment was not on par with that of Clementi. And no, Clementi was not a Mozart, but he was a genius as well. His compositions, also those of that time, showed talent and skill that raised far above the average. So what did Mozart really think when he drove home? My guess would be that he felt really challenged. And what a true genius would do, he did. He adapted the new technical elements he heard and reworked it in his own style. And not much later we would listen to this. or this? His famous letter to his father, written by Mozart, might to be put in perspective with the overwhelming impression this encounter must have had to him. Imagine his father, anxious to read in a press article about his contest, until then thinking his son would easily win whatever contest they would invent. And Mozart, and this is not based on science but just how I imagine him thinking on this event, anticipated this by pushing down the achievements of Clementi as much as he could. I guess that they both had a good time that evening praising each other, because at that level there exists no such thing as jealousy or sneakiness. And Clementi? Well, how strange the idea of living so much longer than his opponent, being able to read that famous letter written by Wolfgang to his father, in which he takes down his accomplishments of that night, so long ago. And what else could he do than smile silently and agree with every word that Mozart wrote, being proud of the fact that his theme served as the opening of what later would become Mozart's most famous opera. And let there be no mistake about Clementi in his older days. He was a giant, called the father of the piano playing, treated as a genius as only few men on earth have had the privilege of being treated. So he could afford to agree with what his old friend Wolfgang wrote more than half a century ago on that illustrious evening. I thank you for watching, and certainly don't forget to subscribe. We see and hear each other very soon again. Bye.